So, welcome back to the Cutter Simpsons Unhinged series. This is number 6 in our series of 40 episodes that have gotten my gander and all that and made me want to talk about some subject matter. The first one we talked about was Lisa Goes Gaga from season 23 when Lisa meets Lady Gaga, who thinks that Lisa needs a pick me up after Lisa is voted least favorite student and basically laughed at on social media. But then Lisa lashes out at Lady Gaga and realizes she can't hold her anger in. And then in season 19, we saw that 90s show when we broke continuity and realized that, yeah, wait a minute, Homer and Marge are older than they seem. They can't have Bart out of high school. So they tell about their story about how Homer gets raged that Marge is secretly in love with her professor and basically ends up they go through a lot of struggles before Bart was born. And then we talked about season 24 and Bongo the dog, in which we find out that Homer actually had a lovable canine friend named Bongo who would help him and stuff after Mona left them. Unfortunately, Bongo bites Mr. Burns during a thing when Burns slaps Homer, and then Burns wants Bongo dead. And to save Bongo, Grandpa puts him up state and is forced to wear pajamas and like fuzzy slippers and a bolo tie. And basically, not just he lost Homer's trust, Bongo lost Homer's trust after Homer realized that Bongo didn't really like him and said that dogs are disloyal. But he was proven wrong. And then we looked at Homer at the Bat, the famous episode from season 3 that saw it do something that no one would seem to do. It beat the Cosby Show first run. Yeah, I know about the Cosby Show being laughed at and all that, but the fact is that it beat it. I know it used nine baseball players and a nice baseball themed episode of Homer being the hero somehow to do it, but whatever. And then we talked about the episode in which Homer um, goes to Vancouver and all that to Canada's warmest winter city, which is true. It's from season 21. And that was, of course, the one that saw Marge single-handedly give the U.S. mixed doubles curling gold and saw Lisa have a pin addiction. So anyway, we talked about that, but now we're going into a dark place, one of the most darkest moments in Simpsons history, and practically one that I wish Homer probably wishes he had back, because this was actually the start of something very dark with Ned Flanders. Really, this is. Here's the next episode. Jerkass Homer, Marge's worries, Bart's pranks, Lisa's causes, Maggie not talking a lot, Grandpa being senile, Patty and Selma boring Marge, Artie Sif is a jerk, Chief Wiggum making things happen, Mr. Burns being a dick. You can never stop the Simpsons. Heaven knows they've been trying for years and they still come back for more. 37 seasons is a bit much, don't you think? It's a crazy Simpsons. Something happens. A do 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 do. This is not a clip show. Have no fear. I've got topics for years. This is Maud Flanders. Everyone should know her as the trusting wife of Ned for the first 10 plus seasons of the show, mother to Rod and Todd, two very sheltered kids, but that's not really all Maud's fault. Secret lust of Homer a few times, including once at a dinner party when something was down her blouse. Remember, that's the one with Homer trying to get that giant fish in season 2? But nevertheless, she's pretty much a, lovable character. Maud did have her dark side, especially after season 6, because people have theorized after she went to Bible camp. You know that episode when Bart thinks that Ned has killed his wife, but he killed his wife's favorite plant. That um, you know, she she learned to be more judgmental, and she seemed to be very mean to Marge, even though that Marge was a decent person. Remember the infestarettes, and basically just tried to make sure that Marge was down in the hole and all of that, because they just couldn't stand Marge being better than them. But yeah, I digress. So anyway, this episode, season 11's Alora Ganadjadilly, of course I can't do that properly, was a very big one. And the and this episode really worked out quite well if you really like this stuff. But anyway, it was an episode on February the 13th, 2000. So this when this is being taped, this will be 26 years plus. This was a massive one and all that. So anyway, the episode starts with Homer complaining about being on a nature walk with Marge, Bart, and Lisa and all that. So they go to the sanctuary. Homer is told to put his poo in a plastic bag. And he's like, bears can crap in the woods. Why can't I? And then we find a bear sheepishly putting a plastic bag in a garbage can. Soon they think they hear bees that sound Africanized, and Homer puts bee spray on, including a lot over his crotch. But it's actually auto cars. And what ended up happening is that the Springfield Bird Sanctuary is built in the middle of a track. They built a racetrack around the sanctuary. How did they not know? How did they get into the bird sanctuary without realizing there's a racetrack? It doesn't make sense. Nevertheless, Lisa is displeased, but the family wants to watch race cars and all that. Lisa grumbles. So Homer and them watch the thing, and then they find out that Ned and Maude are in the audience with the kids, saying they like the fresh air and looking down at the poor people in the infield, like the track's infield, which is Cletus and Brandine, who basically said they're brother and sister. So anyway, everyone wants to see cars crash. There's a couple of near crashes, but they just don't get it. Well, Homer misses one. So anyway, um, Rod and Todd want to get closer to the action, but Ned says, "No way! I don't want you anywhere near those drivers and the cursing and the potty mouths." Bart and Lisa said, "Move your damn butt, bite me." I think they're trying to traumatize Rod and Todd. Nevertheless, they decide to do this thing called fandemonium and t-shirts out to the crowd. In the syndicated version, you don't see the actual design of the t-shirt Dr. Hibbert holds, but in the first run, you can see it. It's a Ford urinary on a Chevrolet, and Beatrice Hibbert tells her husband, "Don't you usually laugh at these things?" Yes, I do. Lanny wants a shirt, but he ends up getting a tire. Now, one station in North Carolina did not like to show this episode, not because of Maude's impending death, but because of that tire scene, because there was an incident at a NASCAR sanctioned event in September 1999 in North Carolina that saw a tire fly in the stands and kill somebody. Truth. That's the truth. Nevertheless, yeah, Lenny gets a tire. He says, "It's okay, folks, groan." Why are you groaning? Homer then dances and wants a shirt and jiggles himself. Ralph in his famous one-liners, "Mommy's got bosoms like that." And Chief Wiggum says, "Yeah, I wish." Basically, it drives Maude out of her seat, and she decides to get Ned hot dogs. No footlongs. I know, they make you uncomfortable. Mwah. Jeez, Ned. But it all makes sense later. Anyhow, so Homer then draws with ketchup a target on his stomach, and four t-shirts come flying at him at the same time. And then all of a sudden, Homer bends down to pick up a bobby pin. Unfortunately, though, he bends down and Maude goes flying over the edge of the section with those t-shirts. And of course, she's pronounced dead unseen. So anyway, Ned doesn't know how to grieve. Marge tells Homer not to be a jerk anymore, and Homer cries because of this. Does this kill off Jerkass Homer? No, it doesn't. So anyway, during the funeral scene, we see headstones of people like B. Simmons, aka Grandpa's girlfriend, Bleeding Gums Murphy, Dr. Marvin Monroe. Although in 2006, we find out that Dr. Marvin Monroe just was really, really sick, and of course Frank Grimes. So anyway, um, Reverend Lovejoy tells about how Maud was a key player in their lives and didn't need a catchphrase to help out. Sea Captain goes, Yar, i.e., from Willie, and Frank goes, Oh, Glavin, Glavin. But whether you like it or not, Maud was always there, and we always thought she would be. My friends, life is about change. Once Apu was a lonely bachelor. Once upon a time, Apu was a lonely bachelor. When Apu was on the show, and of course, Apu had his octopolis. I think it was that same season. And and Ralph Joy says, and the Van Howdens were enjoying a storybook marriage. Yeah, lots of storybooks have witches in them. Shut up, Kirk. Sorry. Yeah, the Van Howdens breaking up was just terrible and all that. Of course, Millhouse lives with his mother before she moves to Capital City, and then Kirk gets pity custody, but that's a different story. So anyway, they do another fandemonium thing at the funeral. Well, that's just disrespectful. Well, it's part of a settlement. Homer finally gets his T-shirt. Really? So anyway, Ned gets comforted by Apu, who will give his squishy points to Ned, and Mo, who makes comments saying that Maud was such a fox. In addition to his lust for Marge, he has a lust for Maud. So basically, he wants Ned to beat him up so that he's getting closer to Maud. Well, that didn't happen. Bart is told to make Rod and Todd happy, but Bart says, Why do these things happen to me? Bart really has a bone to pick with Rod and Todd. Years later, in the episode which saw the Simpsons almost lose their home thanks to Homer's Mardi Gras parties, like Flanders saves the house from being bought out, and Bart puts a picture over his face of him making a funny face instead of a smiley face because he can't bear to smile around the Flanders kids. Oh, Bart, you misused Millhouse and you gotta misuse Rod and Todd. Nevertheless, he tries to cheer them up, but he cheers himself up. I guess because he's like, this really makes me happy, dealing with Rod and Todd. And even though that he's hogging the game, he's like, we're a team. Yay! So of course Ned doesn't know how to deal with it. And he offers to talk to Homer and all that. And Ned says, the last thing I said to her was no footlongs. And Homer says, I wish you, yeah, I guess you shouldn't really say that. And then Ned says, I should have been a gentleman and got the hot dogs myself. Homer then says, No, it's my fault. I drove Maud out of her seat. I bent over to pick up the bobby pin while the t shirts were flying at her, and I parked in the ambulance spot, which would have which would have given Maud more time for resuscitation. But let's not pin blame on everyone. And of course, Ned sighs and all that. So Homer, racked with guilt, decides to help Ned move on with a dating video. He uses star wipes and all that from Lisa's first video editor thing and all that. So he presents the video to Ned and all that. It does look good. Unfortunately, though, it shows Ned's bank pin number and him in the shower. How do you not notice Homer is looking at you in the shower? And the pixelated thing says maybe that's why Ned hates the boy no footlongs. I know. This isn't about that. Nevertheless, he does get some help from the dating video. He gets Lindsay Nagel, who's being investigated and all that. I think she has blonde hairs, right? Yep, in this one. And then Mrs. Krabappel, who Ned accuses of using Ned to make Principal Skinner jealous. And this woman named Diane, who's got issues. Ned, of course, is upset that God had taken his wife so strongly. So basically, he turns his back on God and does not want to go to church and all that. Scares Rod and Todd. But Ned relents, and of course, he goes to church, and thankfully, he meets Rachel Jordan, the leader of Covenant, and then realizes that there might be a chance to be with her. So logically, you know, it could work out. So yeah, that's the main plot line. there's also the plot line that, it doesn't work out for Ned. In case you want to know, it doesn't work out for Ned with Rachel because of the fact that Ned tries to make Rachel into Maud's image. Well, that's the next season. That's a different story for a different time. So there's a lot to unpack with this. Of course, we'll talk about the sequence of pictures in the background. But the fact of the matter is this episode and all that. Like I said, that it was criticized because there was an incident at Charlotte Motor Speedway that left 3 spectators dead. It was the commercial and all that, but it was not making fun of the incident, so it's fine. Reviews have been mixed and all that. So anyway, you know that's just feeling and all that. It was just awful. Of course, this was the whole thing to do with Maggie Roswell. And no, Maggie Roswell was not actually the main voice of Maude. Maude's voice had really changed in like seasons 9, 10, 11. But anyway, this was just, terrible and all that in a sense. Anyway, yeah, the character Maude, voiced by Maggie Roswell, it was because of a pay dispute. So since 1994, when she with her stuff with The Simpsons, she would fly between Denver and Los Angeles twice a week to record episodes of The Simpsons. But she grew tired of this as the price of plane tickets was constantly increasing. She asked Fox for a pay raise, but from 2000 to 6,000. But unfortunately, she was only given a $150 raise instead of 4,000. So it didn't cover the travel costs, so she quit. And also her um daughter wasn't doing that well health wise, so that was it. So they put Marsha Gavin to fill in for Roswell's characters. And anyway, yeah, they wanted to open up new storylines for the show. Roswell returned saying that there was a deal to record her lines from her home in Denver. Like, really? You could have easily saved the problem, Fox, by allowing her to record her lines in Denver? Like, seriously. Yeah, Maude was a formidable character and all that. So yeah, it was just like awful and all that. It was the highest rated show on Fox that week with 10.8 million households. Mike Scully, the executive producer, actually did say that there was a reason other than knocking off Maggie Roswell because of her pay dispute. It was to cut of Maude because of the February sweeps, trying to bring in more viewers for the broadcast. They said that there would be a character killed off and all that. So anyway, there were advanced rumors, and one newspaper said Maude was going to die and all that. And the fact that the episode's title was named Alone Again Naturally was kind of a hint too. So yeah, it was 7 out of 10 and all that, saying that first Maude dies and Ned dates and Ned questions his faith. These storylines would be better served if they were the focus of their own individual episodes, says IGN and all that. It's just not funny and all that. So yeah, that was it. And they said the storyline was to make Ned a single father to open up new storylines and all that. So 10.8 million people got to enjoy it and all that, which is pretty good, but it doesn't help it doesn't help matters. Like when you look at things, it's like, you know, just not really in Ned's taste and all that. I mean, Ned's a great character and all that. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot to um, push down and all that. So anyway, that's what it happens. But the one key thing about this is, of course, the picture. You see Homer dancing around with his bosoms, wearing a T-shirt. You do all that for a T-shirt, and then of course Maude getting upset of Homer's movements. I mean, Homer jiggling himself. Why would he have to turn around and jiggle in front of Maude and Ned? I don't understand. It just doesn't make sense. So Maude decides to go get the hot dogs, and then Homer bends over and she gets hit with the T-shirts over the grandstand, and Ned is crushed when he realizes that Maude's dead. But the main question on everyone's lips is, was Homer's actions premeditated? Some people probably might have that issue of if Homer's actions were premeditated. Well, it is commonly known that he hated Ned. He had the secret hatred for the fact that Ned had a loving wife, had two kids, and basically had a better life than him. Well, Homer completely has ruined it for himself. Like he's got a what we call a very psychologically challenged Marge. We'll get to that later in the series. A bratty son Bart who practically plays jokes, and his stunts are more and more gruesome, if you will, like more senile, like file. You got a daughter that is kind of a mouthpiece and all that. Well, and you don't spend time with her, and you got another daughter that you ignore, that being Maggie. So that could be it. But I mean, Homer, I think psychologically doesn't like Ned and wants Ned to get hurt and all that. But I don't think so. Honestly, Homer may be childlike and all that, but I don't think he would have wanted Ned to lose Maude and all that. He would want Ned to get hurt somehow, but I don't think this would be the way he wanted it to happen. So what you got is the fact, was Homer culpable? Partially, yes. But I mean, Homer stooping down for a bobby pin. You may be thinking, oh, that's his childlike wonder, seeing something shiny. But remember the old saying, pick up a bobby pin, you're going to have luck for life. Because I remember an old school 1960s Archie comic, which Jughead picks up a bobby pin and then all his friends start suffering. And then the next day he picks up another one, but then everyone tries to prevent him from picking up the bobby pin, saying that, you picking it up has made other lives worse. So, in essence, I mean, yeah, Homer was always thinking, pick up a bobby pin, you're going to have good luck. And then, of course, with him bent over, Maude got the T-shirt barrage. But the question in my mind is, why didn't they just freaking give Homer two T-shirt cannons instead of 4 or 5 or whatever? I mean, did they have to give Homer 4 T-shirts and all that? Seriously. But yeah, Homer's childlike wonder and all that. And Homer was guilty. Homer felt bad because he figured that his actions were the cause of Maude's death, and decides to try to get Ned back in the dating scene to alleviate his own guilt. People do that. I think it was his own guilt. Did he get arrested and charged because of this situation? No. Ned does make mention of it a couple of times after the fact, that he did forgive Homer for inadvertently killing Maude, all that. But the question on everyone's lips is, did Homer want Maude dead? No, he wanted Ned to get hurt, but not that way. I don't think Homer would be that stupid. And yes, this is in the middle of his Jerkass Homer phase. But personally, I think Homer more than likely just has a childlike gaze on him and all that. At least he tries to make it right. Most people who inadvertently cause trouble would not have bat an eye, saying, it doesn't matter. But it did matter. Homer, for his part, tried to play nice guy and all that, realizing that he screwed up Ned and all that. So, anyhow. But there's also another bit to finish off with, is Ned's downfall. Ned had a downfall after this. I mean, there was a time Ned married Edna Krabappel, and of course, Edna died because Marcia Wallace died. and then Ned's by himself again. I mean, Ned does date a Hollywood starlet, but realizes that it's just not going to work out. He does have a couple more people he likes to see and all that, like Rachel Jordan, who he drove away with his obsession for Maude. He never forgot Maude and all that. I mean, Maude was to Ned the perfect wife. Maude was the perfect counter to Ned because Ned, after Maude died and before he had a relationship with Krabappel, was kind of unbearable to say the least. There was an episode years later, a couple years later, that he ended up winning a computer in a rubber duck race, a church rubber duck race, but he traded it to Marge in exchange for Marge dealing with his kids. But we soon learned that Rod and Todd are basically excluded from a lot of things. Ned yells at them for doing normal things and then tells Marge that since Maude died, he's a single parent and he has to watch out for his kids, but he's overbearing as a parent and all that. And then in that 400 episode, which I'm probably going to end up doing one of these days, talking about, is that it's the episode in which he um, gets Ken Brockman off the air. Rod and Todd ask him about it, and it says, well, I got to do this for my Christian soldiers. And then Rod goes, I think you need a new mummy, one problem at a time. And he has a point. Rod's comment has a point because Ned, without Maude, or a counter, if you will, someone to equal out his craziness, he's overbearing as hell. Like, I hate to say it, but that's the truth. So yeah, Krabappel comes in, and then Krabappel pulls Rod and Todd out of that Christian school, and Ned is upset, saying, "You don't control my kids, I do." And then now Ned was a terrible Father. Remember what season was it? 31, when the episode Todd, why hast thou forsaken me, in which Todd can't recall his mother um, and all that through flashbacks, saying that she's a faceless creature to him. And then once he renounces God and all that, Todd does that. Ned forces him to live with the Simpsons until he gets his faith back. He basically forces Rod to turn his back on Todd, and Ned's upset when Todd doesn't come back to him. He's saying, "What did I do wrong?" And then Ned kind of scalds Rod when he says, "Daddy, now I'm your favorite sin of pride." And then he shrugs. I'll probably be doing that episode once soon. But the fact of the matter is, Ned went downhill. I hate to say it, but the Flannerization kind of bit him in the butt. And that's what I'm getting at. So anyway, that's all I got from Maude Steph. Alone Again digitally ruins Maude because the voice actress had the gall to ask for a raise because of her having to go from Colorado to Los Angeles when they could have easily given her a chance to record her lines from Colorado. You have Homer trying to get past his guilt-ridden phase, and this was the era of Jerkass Homer, or Jerkass Homer, I should say, and Ned slipping off the face. He would turn into this overbearing parent. I mean, understandably, he's a single father, but still, he's stupid diddly. That's what I'm saying. Next week, we take a look at a Christmas episode. We'll be thinking, it's February. So what? Season 15 had a great episode, and that was 'Tis the 15th season, because it really pointed out Homer's big fat flaws, how he would do a redemption, and how Lisa inadvertently caused a lot of problems with Buddhism. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.